The night it happened, the sky was unusually quiet. No stars trembled, no winds hummed. It was the kind of stillness that comes only when something in the world is holding its breath. Down below, the river wound through the valley like a silver thread, reflecting the soft shimmer of the moon. She hung low that night, so low that the fishermen on the banks whispered, "She must be tired." "Too many nights keeping watch," one said. "Even the sky must rest." And maybe he was right, because when the hour turned between yesterday and tomorrow, the moon trembled. Her light flickered once, twice, and then she fell. Not like a stone, but like a sigh. Slowly, gently, as if surrendering to gravity's old invitation. She slipped through the clouds, brushed the treetops, and touched the surface of the river with a sound softer than a heartbeat. The water opened for her like glass. Ripples spread outward, wide as wonder. The whole valley glowed white for a moment, and then dimmed, as if the world itself was unsure whether to wake or dream. When dawn came, the river was brighter than it should have been. The people gathered along its edge and stared into its current, for there, deep beneath the moving water, shimmered her reflection, no longer in the sky, but within the river itself. The moon had fallen, and the world had changed. She did not understand, at first, that she was trapped. The river sang to her, cool and constant, wrapping around her light. It whispered, "Stay a while, pale sister. Rest. You've watched us for so long. Let us carry you for a time." And she did rest. For many nights, she let the current move through her. Fish brushed against her light, reeds bent in her glow, and the water birds circled overhead, confused but comforted by her new home. But the sky above her was empty. Where she had once hung, round and whole, there was only a pale smear of cloud. The stars blinked nervously, as if afraid of the dark space she had left behind. From the riverbed, the moon watched the heavens, and for the first time in eternity, she felt the weight of her absence. "I've fallen," she whispered. Her voice rippled across the current. "And the night has lost its shape." Days passed, then weeks. People began to forget the moon as she had been. They told stories of her fall, some sad, some romantic, some half-remembered. Children threw pebbles into the river, hoping to wake her glow. Lovers met by the water and spoke their vows beneath her reflection, believing her light made their promises pure. But the moon wept beneath the current. Her tears were invisible, dissolved as soon as they touched the water. Still, the river knew. Each tear made it a little heavier, a little slower. The fish found the current harder to swim. The reeds began to bend with sorrow. The river called out to her. "Moon, don't cry. You'll flood us with your sadness." "I can't help it," she said softly. "The sky feels so far away." Then one evening, a girl came to the river. She was small, perhaps 12, with a lantern in her hand and a basket of flowers for her mother, who slept in the hillside cemetery. Her name was Lyra, though the moon didn't know that yet. When Lyra reached the water's edge, she saw the silver shimmer beneath the surface and gasped. You're real," she whispered. "I thought you were only a story." The moon looked up at her through the rippling surface. "And you're awake," she said. "Most who come here only dream." Lyra laughed softly. "Then maybe I'm dreaming too." The moon tilted her light. "If you were dreaming, little one, would your lantern burn so warm?" The girl looked down. The flame fluttered gently inside its glass case. "Maybe not," she admitted. There was a long pause between them, the hush of water, the faint cry of a night bird overhead. "Why did you fall?" Lyra asked finally. The moon hesitated. "I grew tired. Or maybe the sky let me go." "Do you want to go back?" The moon's reflection flickered, a shimmer of hesitation. "Yes. But I no longer know how." Lyra thought for a moment, then placed her lantern on the ground. The light danced beside the river, small but brave. "Maybe I can help," she said. "You?" The moon's voice trembled like a breeze through reeds. "How could you help me, child of Earth?" Lyra smiled. "You helped me once. When I was small and afraid of the dark. You stayed with me all night through my window. You didn't leave until I fell asleep." The river glowed brighter. The moon's light rippled with something like surprise, or maybe gratitude. Then perhaps we have always been helping one another. The girl nodded. So, if you want to go back, maybe you just need to stop crying. The moon fell silent. The water stilled around her. Why would that help? She asked softly. Because tears are heavy, Lyra said simply. They keep you down. That night, the moon made her promise. She looked into the current, her reflection scattered by movement, by light, by her own sorrow, and whispered, "Then I will not cry again." The river shivered, sensing the weight of her words. The stars blinked above, faint but listening. And though she did not know it yet, the promise would change everything: the river, the sky, and the hearts of those who dreamed beneath her glow. After the promise, the nights grew oddly still. The moon no longer wept, and the river noticed the change first. Its current became lighter, less burdened by sorrow. The fish darted freely once more, and the reeds began to hum in the evenings when the wind passed through them. Yet with the calm came a strange silence, as if something essential had gone missing from the song of the valley. Lyra returned to the river each night after her chores. Sometimes she brought her lantern, sometimes only her voice. The moon listened, quiet beneath the surface, her light diffused like pearls scattered through water. The two of them spoke about small things: the shapes of clouds, the smell of rain, how time seems to move slower when one is waiting. The moon liked the girls' laughter. It was quick and bright, like sunlight flashing on ripples. But she missed the stars. One night, Lyra arrived carrying a mirror. It was an old thing, her grandmother's, rimmed with tarnished silver and cracks that spidered across the glass like frozen lightning. She knelt beside the river and set it down so that it caught both her own reflection and the faint shimmer of the moon below. "Why have you brought that?" the moon asked, curious. "I thought," Lyra said, "maybe if you saw yourself as you were, it would help you remember what the sky felt like." The moon's glow flickered across the broken mirror, bending through the cracks. She looked, and for the first time since her fall, she saw herself as something other than a blur. But she also saw the fractures. "I don't look the same," the moon whispered. "My face is scattered." Lyra frowned gently. "Maybe that's not bad. Maybe you're just changing shape."
The moon thought about this.
"Do people change shape?" "All the time," Lyra said. "When they're sad, or when they love someone, or when they stop being afraid." The moon was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Maybe I'm learning how to be something new." As days became weeks, a soft rumor began to travel through the valley. Fishermen claimed the tides no longer obeyed their rhythms. The water sometimes reversed itself at dawn, flowing backward as if drawn by some unseen hand. Cattle grew restless near the riverbanks, and old women who read omens in the patterns of moss began whispering that the river had started to dream. And they were not wrong. At night, when the world grew dim, the river began to speak to itself, not in words, but in shimmering reflections. It remembered its long journey from the mountains, the countless stones that had shaped its path, the many lives that had drunk from it. It remembered being small, wild, free. Now, with the moon's light coursing through it, the river began to imagine what it might feel like to touch the sky. It dreamed of rising, just as she once fell. The moon, too, could feel the river's new restlessness. At times, the current beneath her grew turbulent, spinning whirlpools that tugged at her glow. Once, a wave rose high enough to nearly break the surface, and for a heartbeat the valley shimmered with both sky and water light, indistinguishable. Then the river calmed again, ashamed of its boldness. "Be still," the moon murmured. "You'll spill yourself out of the world." "I only wish to help you rise," the river whispered back, voice low as undertow. "You do not belong in my depths." "But I am here," she said gently. "And I must keep my promise. I cannot cry again." "Perhaps," the river said, "not all tears are sorrow." Lyra, watching the strange tides, began to worry. Each day she came to the river, she found the banks changed, a little higher, a little wetter. The water crept up toward the fields, stealing inches from the earth. She told the villagers, but they laughed softly and said, "Rivers swell in spring, child. Don't let your imagination trouble you." But the old ferryman, who had seen more years than anyone else, looked at her gravely and said, "If the moon has truly fallen, little one, the river will never be the same. The world's balance depends on her patience." Lyra didn't understand all his words, but she felt the truth in them. That night, she went back to the river and called softly, "Moon, are you there?" The water shimmered faintly. "Always." "I think the river's getting angry," Lyra said. "Or maybe lonely." "Rivers are never lonely," the moon said. "They are made of every drop that ever fell from the sky." "Then maybe it misses the sky," Lyra said. The moon fell silent, and though she had sworn never to cry again, something deep inside her, something ancient and tidal, trembled. At the edge of the forest, where the river first curved toward the mountains, the villagers had built a shrine long ago, a place of offerings for good harvests and safe passage. No one visited it much anymore, but that spring, the water reached its stone steps for the first time in generations. The candles left there began to float away, tiny islands of flame. Lyra followed them one evening, wading knee-deep into the current. The candles drifted slowly, forming a loose circle on the water's surface. Beneath them, the moon's reflection widened, growing brighter, as if she were gathering light from every little flame. "Lyra," the moon whispered, "do you see what they're doing?" "They're floating toward you," Lyra said. "They're showing me the way," the moon murmured. "But not upward, inward." That night, Lyra dreamed. She dreamed she stood in the middle of the river, her feet sinking into silver sand. The water around her was still, like glass, and below its surface, the moon floated, not as reflection, but whole and luminous. The moon looked up at her and spoke, though her voice was like music without sound. "If I am to rise again, it will not be alone. The river must learn to let go." Lyra reached out her hand in the dream. "How can it let go?" "By remembering it is more than what it carries," said the moon. When she awoke, the river outside her window was whispering her name, "By midsummer." The valley no longer slept easily. Nights had grown strangely bright, not with the clean light of the moon, but with a restless shimmer that never stayed still. The river glowed faintly now even at noon, a thin silver thread running through fields and gardens. Children played in it, thinking it magic. The elders watched from the hills, troubled. The moon's light had begun to spread. Each ripple carried a piece of her, tiny shards of radiance drifting downstream. And though she could feel her strength thinning, she did not call them back. It was better, she thought, for her to be part of the world than trapped entirely beneath it. But the river disagreed. "You are breaking apart," it murmured. "You belong whole." "I am tired of belonging anywhere," the moon replied. Lyra spent her days helping her mother in the garden and her nights by the water, trying to understand the dream that would not leave her. Each night, she heard the river whisper differently, sometimes with warmth, sometimes with warning. Sometimes she thought it loved the moon, and sometimes she thought it feared her. One evening, Lyra asked, "Moon, what did you mean, that the river must remember what it is?" The moon's reflection rippled. "Once, long ago, the river was sky." "That's not possible," Lyra said, smiling a little. "Everything that falls remembers the height it came from," said the moon. "Rain, stones, hearts. Even light." Lyra felt something stir in her chest. "Then maybe you can remind the river." "Perhaps that's why I fell," the moon said quietly. "To teach it how to rise." That same night, a storm gathered in the mountains. Thunder rolled like distant drums, and lightning stitched the horizon. The villagers shuttered their windows, but Lyra stood by the river, clutching her lantern. The rain came hard and sudden, sharp needles of silver against the earth. The river swelled, wild and white, foam leaping against the banks. And beneath it all, the moon glowed fiercely, her light cutting through the flood as though defying the storm itself. "Lyra," cried her mother from the doorway. "Come inside." But Lyra didn't move. She saw something in the river, a shape rising, slow and deliberate, like a breath drawn after too long underwater. It was the moon's reflection, yes, but not flat anymore. It curved upward, round and radiant, trembling as if caught between two worlds. The storm split the sky open, and in that flash, Lyra saw the moon's face, whole for the first time since her fall. Then the river crashed back down, and she was gone. When the storm ended, half the village had flooded. The fields were thick with mud, the bridges broken, and yet the river glowed more beautifully than ever, calm now, clear, impossibly deep. Lyra wandered its edge until dawn, searching for a glimpse of silver. Finally, as the sun broke through the clouds, she saw it. The moon, faint but present, resting low near the riverbed, her light dimmed but steady. "You tried to rise," Lyra said softly. The moon's voice was weak. "The river held me. It's not ready to let go." "Then I'll talk to it," Lyra said. "Someone has to." The moon smiled faintly, a shimmer across the current. "Be gentle. It dreams in currents older than your kind can name." That evening, Lyra went to the old stone bridge, where the water ran deepest. She knelt, touched the surface, and whispered, "River, may I speak with you?" The current slowed, listening. "Why do you keep her?" she asked. "She wants to rise." The river's voice rolled low, like pebbles shifting beneath the flow. "Because she is part of me now. She fell into my heart, and I have carried her ever since." "But she doesn't belong in sorrow," Lyra said. "Neither do you," said the river. "Yet here you stand." Lyra blinked. "What do you mean?" "You visit her each night, whisper to her light, and dream of what you cannot reach. You and I are not so different." The water rippled against the stones, as though amused by its own wisdom. Lyra sighed. "Maybe. But she still deserves the sky." "And what will become of me if she leaves?" asked the river. "Without her, I am only water again, cold, forgetful, drifting." Lyra hesitated. She had no answer for that. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching the swollen river glint in the moonless dark. The world outside seemed to hold its breath again, as it had the night of the fall. And then, faintly, a voice, inside her dream or beyond it, she couldn't tell, said, "Every promise has two ends. Pull too hard on one, and the other frays." Lyra woke before dawn, her heart beating fast. She understood then that the moon's vow, never to cry again, had bound more than just herself. It had stilled the very rhythm of things, the pull of tides, the memory of rain, the voice of longing. Without sorrow, nothing could move. If the moon did not weep, the world would not heal. At sunrise, she went to the river once more. "Moon," she said softly, kneeling by the edge. "You made a promise, but maybe it's time to break it." The moon's light trembled faintly. "If I cry again, I may never stop." "Then I'll stay," Lyra said. "Until you do." For a long moment, there was silence. Then, from somewhere deep beneath the current, a single, shining tear rose to the surface, slow and heavy as dawn. It touched the air, caught the morning light, and fell back into the river. When it did, the valley brightened. The birds began to sing. The river sighed, long and low, as if it had finally remembered how to breathe. The moon whispered, "Thank you." And though she was still beneath the water, something in her light turned upward, no longer trapped, but beginning to rise. For the first time since her fall, the moon's light felt alive. Her single tear had rippled through the valley, reaching even the farthest streams. The river glowed from its mouth to its source, trembling with something older than itself, memory. It remembered the long fall from clouds, the laughter of storms, the soft hands of rain meeting earth. It remembered the sky, and it wanted it back. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. Mist rose each morning, thick and silver, clinging to trees and rooftops. The air shimmered faintly even in shadow, as if the light beneath the river could not quite stay contained. The fishermen whispered that the river was trying to rise. The old women said the moon's tears had awakened something divine. The children said nothing at all, they simply followed the light. Lyra, meanwhile, could feel the pull beneath her feet every time she came to the shore. The river no longer felt like water. It felt like breath, deep and full of wanting. The moon spoke less now. Her voice came faintly through the current, soft as the echo of bells. "Something is changing," she said. "The river is no longer holding me still. It's remembering that it once touched the clouds." "Then it's working," said Lyra. "I'm not sure," the moon murmured. "Memory is heavier than it looks." That evening, as dusk spread across the valley, the light beneath the water began to gather, not in ripples, but in rising spirals, coiling like smoke beneath glass. The moon's reflection expanded, stretching far beyond the banks, until every pool, every drop, seemed to shimmer with her glow. The whole world was filled with her face, fractured and infinite. Then, for the briefest moment, the river rose. Not all of it, not the heavy earthbound weight, but a thin skin of water lifted from the surface, hovering in the air like a living veil. Within it shimmered starlight. The people who saw it that night would never forget the sight of water floating upward, glimmering with light that belonged both to heaven and to earth. The river was remembering, and the sky was listening. Lyra stood at the heart of it, her lantern raised, her hair clinging to her face with mist. "Moon," she called. "Can you see it? You're rising." "I see," said the moon, her voice trembling through the air like distant chimes. "But it's not only me. The river rises too." The current surged around Lyra's knees, gentle but insistent. She felt her feet lift slightly, her balance sway. The river was pulling at her, not to harm, but to take her with it. "Wait," she whispered. "Not me." "Why not?" said the river, its voice deeper now, vast and layered like many waters speaking at once. "You belong to both of us. Earth and sky. Flesh and light. You are the bridge between." "I'm only a girl," Lyra said. "I can't be a bridge." But her lantern's flame, reflected in the rising mist, seemed to answer otherwise. It burned brighter, small but defiant, and in its glow, the moon's light steadied. "You can," said the moon, "because you remember both." The river shuddered. A wind rolled through the valley, shaking branches and rooftops. The air filled with the scent of rain, but the sky was clear. The villagers gathered on the hills, eyes wide. They watched as the river's surface lifted again, this time higher, shimmering with ghost-like streams that drifted upward like ribbons of silver. Someone whispered, "The water's leaving the world." Someone else said, "No, it's going home." At the center of the rising light, Lyra stood with her arms outstretched. The moon's reflection surrounded her, swirling into a vast circle. She could see both the river below and the endless dark above, and for the first time, they looked the same. "Moon," she said softly, "if you rise again, what will happen to us?" The moon's light pulsed gently. "If I return, the world will remember how to move. Tides, dreams, even hearts, all will flow again. But you, my dear one, you may have to let me go." Lyra's throat tightened. "I don't want to." "I know," said the moon, "but you already taught me how." She paused, her voice dimming with sorrow. "You showed me that to stop crying is to stop changing. Now you must do the same." The river began to hum, a low, resonant tone that seemed to rise from its deepest stones. Lyra felt her chest ache with it, her heartbeat sinking to the sound. Then the moon began to lift. Her light rose in a slow arc, drawing silver lines through the mist, droplets spinning around her like stars. The river roared beneath, torn between joy and grief. Waves clashed against the banks, but this time they did not destroy, they danced. "Go," whispered Lyra. "Go home." The moon's light passed over her face one last time, a kiss of warmth, cool and tender. "I will always shine on this water," she said. "Wherever the river runs, you will see me." And then she rose. The mist parted. The river stilled. The moon ascended into her old place in the sky, pale and trembling, new and ancient all at once. When morning came, the valley was quiet again. The floodwaters had retreated. The river was calm, but something in it gleamed, soft and eternal. Lyra sat on the bank, her lantern unlit, her eyes tired but full of peace. The sky above was whole once more. Yet when she looked down, she still saw the moon's reflection, not trapped this time, but smiling. The river had remembered the sky, and the sky had remembered the river. And between them, in that quiet space of memory and light, a girl's promise still echoed. If you fall again, I will help you rise. The years passed gently. The river returned to its steady song, threading through the valley as it always had, but now it carried a memory in its depths, a soft glow that never faded. Children born after that strange summer grew up thinking it was natural for water to shine faintly at night. They called it moon water and bottled it for luck. The elders still told the story, though each in their own way. Some said the moon had fallen from exhaustion. Others said she had leapt on purpose, to teach the world about sorrow. But only one person knew what truly happened. Lyra. She grew older as all things do. Her hair silvered like the river's edge, her voice deepened, and the lantern she once carried became a keepsake that hung by her door. Every evening she lit it, not for light, but as greeting, a small flame saying, "I remember." The moon always answered. On clear nights her reflection came to rest beside the flame, the two circles of light trembling together on the water's surface. It was their old conversation, wordless now but no less true. Sometimes Lyra would whisper, "Are you lonely up there?" And the moon would seem to sway, a slow shimmer that meant never, while rivers dream.
Seasons changed.
The valley prospered. The river never flooded again, nor ran dry. It moved with perfect rhythm, as though it had finally learned the balance between holding and letting go. But one winter, when frost rimed every branch and even the river's song turned to hush, Lyra fell ill. She stayed in bed for days, too weak to rise, watching the snow blur the sky outside her window. One night she awoke to soft light filling her room, silver, steady, familiar. Through the window she saw the moon leaning low again, enormous and bright, its reflection reaching straight to her door. The river had crept closer in the thaw, whispering against the stones. "Lyra," said the moon, her voice like water on glass. "It's time." Lyra smiled faintly. "To go." "To rise," said the moon. She stood, frail but unafraid, and followed the light down to the shore. The air was still, the world half asleep beneath snow. When she reached the edge, she saw that the water was not cold at all. It shimmered with warmth, alive with tiny reflections. "Do you remember our promise?" the moon asked. Lyra nodded. "If you fall again, I will help you rise. And if you rise too high," the moon said gently, "I will help you rest." Then the river opened for her, soft as breath. She stepped forward once, twice, and her reflection met her feet. The light gathered around her like a veil, drawing her downward and upward all at once, until the valley was filled with radiance too pure to name. When it faded, only her lantern remained on the shore, its flame flickering beside the moon's reflection. In the mornings that followed, the villagers found the river brighter than ever. They said the moon had blessed it again, or perhaps it was simply the season's trick. But sometimes, on quiet nights, if you stood at the water's edge and listened, you could hear a girl's voice carried softly through the current, a laughter like ripples, a whisper like light. The moon, watching from her rightful place, never wept again. Yet each time her reflection touched the river, the glow deepened, as if she remembered the girl who taught her that tears and change are one and the same. And so the valley lived between two promises. One written in water, one written in sky.